I want you all to know that I've been doing some serious research for this morning's sermon. I have pored over the ancient texts that tell the story of that one day when Jesus and his dad and his mom, Joe and Mary, received those strange and wonderful visitors. I have spent hours in the library. I have taken a deep dive online. Based on my reading, I had always suspected something was up with those visitors. Now, in fact, my research has uncovered a new translation. Just a little bit different from the one Jesse just read for us. Here it is. You get to hear it first. In the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, his Aunt Cassie and Uncle Mel from out east came to Jerusalem. It was a long trip, back roads and all. And when they got there, Bethlehem had changed a lot since they'd last visited. So even though the sky was bright with stars and Aunt Cassie and Uncle Mel should have known where they were going, they got lost. So much to Uncle Mel's chagrin, Aunt Cassie insisted that they stop at the Bethlehem Royal Farms to ask for directions. Uncle Mel, a little sheepish, got out of the car, walked into the store, waited his turn in line, and then asked the man behind the counter, "I understand a child was born around these parts not too long ago. I'm wondering if you've heard about the news and could tell me where I could find him and his mom and his dad." Well, the man behind the counter got kind of a fearful look on his face and told old Mel, "Hold on a minute, let me ask around." He walked back behind the coffee bar and asked some of the locals. They talked for a minute, glanced back and forth between Mel and them, and then he came back. "Well, sir," he said, "you're on the right track. You just keep heading in the direction of that star out there and you'll run right into old Joe and Mary's place. I'm sure they'll be happy to see you. Hey, and if you come back this way, let me know if you found him." "Well, thanks for your help. Much obliged," said Uncle Mel as he walked out the door, climbed back into his car, and looked at his wife. "See," he said, "we've been heading the right way the whole time. Just like I told you." Sure enough, after another little bit, Uncle Mel and Aunt Cassie, they found the place. They knew it as soon as they turned the corner and saw it. Aunt Cassie, she was thrilled and raced to the house. Uncle Mel, still a little put out by that whole asking for directions thing, followed a few steps behind, carrying the gifts. But the minute they got into that house, the minute they saw that child, they were just overwhelmed. Aunt Cassie asked, "Can I hold him? Can I hold him?" and then ripped the baby out of Mary's arms. Uncle Mel walked over to old Joe, cleared his throat, and after a minute, an awkward silence, all he was able to say was, "Joe, that boy's a chip off the old block. You can sure tell he's his daddy's boy." Yes, sirree. Uncle Mel was so overcome with joy that he didn't even notice Joe look over at Mary and give her a big wink. He's his daddy's boy, all right. Then out came the gifts. Now, I know what most scholars say about the story of the visitation of the Magi. I have heard that the guy who wrote the Gospel of Matthew thought it was important to make Jesus seem like he was more important than all the other royalty in the world. And that is why these exotic characters from the East made it into the story of Jesus' birth. They bowed to him. And like you, I have heard that Herod the Great had become the very symbol of evil and depravity by the time the Gospel of Matthew was written, and that it was important for Jesus, with the help of these mysterious visitors, to somehow outsmart old Herod and escape right out from under his nose. And someone told me once that the gifts brought by the Magi weren't really gifts that you would typically give to a baby, but that they were symbols that told the story of how Jesus' life was going to play out. The goal, tells us that Jesus was destined to be a king. The frankincense was what Jews used at the time when they worshipped in the temple, and pointed to the reality that Jesus was to be worshipped. And the myrrh, well, that one was sort of the most awkward of all the gifts brought to Jesus that night, because myrrh was what people typically used to anoint those who had just passed away, to prepare them for burial. Strange gift to give to a child, but for Matthew, very symbolic. I know there is an accepted interpretation of why the Magi came to visit Jesus in the Gospel of Matthew. I get that. I'm just saying here this morning that if the gifts of the Magi have been the inspiration for giving gifts at Christmas for all these years, isn't it at least possible that the Magi weren't really kings at all, but instead were the first aunt and uncle to come and visit on Christmas? I mean, really. They came a great distance after they had their own gift exchange. They couldn't figure out how to use the GPS. They had to stop and ask for directions. They were overwhelmed when they saw the baby. Oh, look at him! And here's the clincher. They gave the strangest gifts, like aunts and uncles sometimes do. Aunts and uncles and Christmas go together like holly and ivy. So even if it turns out that my biblical interpretation of the journey of the Magi isn't entirely accurate, don't you think that aunts and uncles should be part of the Christmas story? Not everyone gets to or even wants to be a mom or a dad. But it seems to me that just about everyone either gets to have an aunt or uncle or gets to be an aunt or an uncle. For either one, there's no better time than the holidays to ply our aunt and uncle skills. In our family, we used to have our Aunt Bernine and Uncle Dwight come over to our house on Christmas Eve. Just wasn't Christmas until they were there. They'd sleep over the night and they'd be there for the mayhem of Christmas morning. Sweet rolls, coffee, the race down the stairs, the Santa experience. They were part of the fabric of Christmas for us. They were there the Christmas my brother got a pool table. That was quite a night. My dad and uncle carried the table, the slate table, from over at the neighbor's house on Christmas Eve after we went to bed. It was snowing. Snowed all night. And the next morning, my mother, my trustworthy, reliable, honest mother, claimed to have looked out the back door and seen footprints that went on either side of the crepe myrtle bush in the backyard. Footprints in the snow. It was a Christmas miracle. Old Uncle Dwight loved to tell that story, and every year that crepe myrtle bush just got a little bit taller. Aunt Bernine and Uncle Dwight were also there. Well, that year I got the snare drum for Christmas. They left a little earlier than normal, as I recall. But it made our Christmas to have aunts and uncles there, present. Aunts and uncles are great gifts to us, aren't they? They're not always there, but they're there on the important days. They come to the important things. And when they arrive, they give us much more than presents, don't they? Aunts and uncles. Of course, they can be a little different than what we're used to, but at their best, aunts and uncles add a texture to the love we feel as children. Aunts and uncles make us feel valued and loved. Aunts and uncles sometimes give us cousins, and cousins are great. Aunts and uncles can be among the most important people in our village. When we are growing up, we figure our parents have to love us. But then these aunts and uncles come over to visit, and they do things like give us their undivided attention. Of course, they always say how much we've grown, even if it's only been 2 weeks. But then they sit down and read us a book. They invite us over to spend the night, give us our first opportunities to be away from home in a safe place. They come to our ball games, and the next thing you know, they're showing up at our graduation. And then there's this really important thing they do. Aunts and uncles are sometimes there when things aren't going all that well with mom and dad. Confidants, co-conspirators, they teach us how to be family. The Magi may or may not have been Jesus' Aunt Cassie and Uncle Mel, but so many times aunts and uncles do bear witness to what it means to be Christ-like, in Christ's presence. Without any reason, they adore us. They give us the gift of their presence. If they're not part of the story of the birth of Jesus, they should be. Now, I know we come from a variety of family backgrounds, and I know when I celebrate that there is such diversity in who we are, but my guess is that everyone here today has an aunt or an uncle who at some point along the way has added to our own self-worth and made us more of a loving, caring person than we would have otherwise been. You know how sometimes neighbors and special friends of our folks get the honorary title of aunt or uncle. Well, I would like to suggest to you today that while we are called to offer ourselves to the world like servants, and while we are called to treat each other like brothers and sisters, and while we are called to come before God as little children, that one really good way to bear witness to Jesus in this world of ours is to aunt and uncle it. Is to be aunts and uncles for those whose paths we cross. Find a child who may or may not be sure that they are a beloved child of God and spend some time with them. Find a parent who is struggling to provide for her own children and offer yourself. Provide someone an outing they might not have otherwise had. The first time I visited the Enchanted Forest in Ellicott City was with my aunt, Mary Sue. Share your wisdom with someone who might just become one of your biggest fans. Visit, cook, sew, sing, play, read. Foot the bill every once in a while with no expectation of receiving anything in return. Do these things, my fellow aunts and uncles, not just for the kids you know, but for anyone out there who needs a little adoration to become who God has created them to be.